Welcome to the Hindu Daily. We're embarking on a deep dive today, looking at quite a range of sources. We'll cover everything from early disease detection using tiny molecules all the way to huge cosmic structures, plus shifts in policy, politics, and even how we think about retirement.
It's definitely a broad spectrum, so let's jump right into the FAQ section. First up is public health in India. We know the burden of non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, is just massive. You've got over 100 million people with diabetes, and get this, another 136 million estimated to be pre-diabetic.
That's staggering. And the problem is conventional tests often catch it too late, right? After damage has already started.
Exactly, which is why this new research from IIT Bombay and Osmania University is potentially so important. They're looking at something called metabolomic profiling.
Metabolomics. Could
Yeah.
you break that down a bit?
Sure. It's basically the large-scale study of metabolites. These are tiny molecules in your blood. Think sugars, amino acids, lipids. They're like the immediate chemical fingerprints of what your cells are doing. And the key idea is they can act as really early warning signals for disease, much earlier than traditional markers.
Okay, so what did this specific study find?
Well, what's really promising, especially for India, is the how. They use simple dried blood spots, just a finger prick collected on filter paper. Super simple.
So potentially very field-friendly, not needing complex blood draws.
Precisely. And using this method, even on a relatively small group of 52 people, they identified 26 specific metabolites that were significantly different in individuals with diabetes. Some were expected, but others, like villorbitine and ragothiamidine, were quite surprising.
And you mentioned a link to kidney disease.
Yes, that's crucial. 7 particular markers, like erythritol and myoinositol, showed a clear progressive increase that correlated with the development of diabetic kidney disease, DKD.
So the potential here is huge, right? A low-cost, scalable screening tool, especially for rural areas, shifting from just treating disease to actually preventing it.
That's the dream scenario, yes. Proactive, maybe even personalized care, but there are hurdles.
Let me guess. The technology to analyze these spots.
You got it. The core technique is mass spectrometry. It's powerful, but it's also expensive and, well, not exactly common outside research labs.
Right. And the small sample size, too, needs bigger studies.
Definitely. Needs replication in much larger, more diverse populations across India. So fantastic potential, but we need technological advances or, more validation before it hits the mainstream.
Okay, let's shift gears from the micro level of molecules to macro level policy. We're looking at a new framework concerning tribal rights and tiger reserves.
Yes, this comes from the Union Ministry of Tribal Affairs, or MOTA. It addresses how communities living in forests should be treated when areas are designated as tiger reserves, specifically around relocation.
And what's the core message from MOTA?
It's pretty unequivocal. Relocation must be the absolute last resort. The first step, always, must be settling the rights of scheduled tribes and other forest dwellers under the Forest Rights Act of 2006.
So coexistence is the default.
Exactly. Communities have to be given the option to coexist. This whole policy brief seems to stem from serious concerns about the FRA not being properly implemented in protected areas.
Is it just a statement of principle, or are there actual mechanisms proposed?
Oh, there are mechanisms. They're pushing for a joint national framework for community-centered conservation and relocation, developed to the Environment Ministry, MOEFEC. And importantly, a national database, the DCCI, to track every single relocation. Who was moved, when, what compensation they received, total transparency.
Sounds like they want accountability, audits.
Yes, annual independent audits are recommended to check compliance with the FRA, the Wildlife Protection Act, and basic human rights standards.
What about the consent process? That's often been a sticking point.
That's maybe the biggest procedural shift proposed. Consent needs to be verified not just at the Gram Sabha level, which is the village council, but also from each individual household.
Wow, each household. That's significant.
It is. And here's the kicker. This consent must be secured before an area is even officially declared part of a tiger reserve, not after.
Why that push for this now?
It seems directly linked to a controversial directive from the National Tiger Conservation Authority, the NTCA, back in June 2024. That directive called for prioritizing relocations, and it sparked widespread protests. So MOTA is basically reinforcing its position, stating the government has an affirmative constitutional duty to protect FRA rights. And these rights can only be limited if there's a truly demonstrable ecological necessity. It's quite a strong stance.
Okay, from forest to the digital frontier, India's AI governance guidelines have been unveiled. What's the soup?
Right. The Ministry of Electronics and IT MAIDI, dropped a 66-page document outlining India's strategy for AI regulation and promotion. This comes as India is now the second biggest user of things like ChatGPT, after the US.
And the timing, leading up to a summit.
Yeah, they're positioning this ahead of the AI Impact Summit planned for 2026. The guiding philosophy they're emphasizing is all about being people-centric, ensuring accountability, and fairness.
So, harnessing AI for good while managing the risks.
That's the tightrope walk, yes.
Yeah.
Using AI for inclusive development, but putting guardrails in place.
How are they planning to govern this? It seems like a huge task for one ministry.
It is. So the proposal is to set up an AI governance group. Think of it as an overarching body pulling together different ministries, and crucially, involving sectoral regulators. Like the RBI for finance, they've already put out their own committee report on AI and the Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS. So distribute the oversight.
What about the private sector's role?
The guidelines advise companies to ensure compliance, adopt voluntary frameworks for now published transparency reports, and have grievance redressal mechanisms. Basically, self-regulation with government oversight. They also mention supporting safety research through a virtual AI Safety Institute, AISI, involving academia.
Anything particularly India-specific about this approach?
I'd say two things stand out. First, a really strong focus on building infrastructure. They explicitly talk about procuring GPUs, graphics processing units, to create common compute facilities. So, democratizing access to the hardware needed for AI.
Okay, infrastructure access. What's the second?
Promoting locally relevant datasets, especially for training Indian language models, and alongside that, a very sharp focus on content authentication to tackle deepfakes.
Ah, the deepfake issue. So rules about labeling synthetic content.
Exactly. Requiring clear labeling for AI-generated content seems to be a priority.
But it's still guidelines for now, not hard law?
For now, yes. But the IT secretary made it pretty clear. He said, while this provides a framework, the government won't hesitate to act fast, maybe even pass a strict law if things change, or risks escalate quickly. They want flexibility but reserve the right to clamp down if needed.
Okay, interesting. Let's shift focus now, moving from policy frameworks to political movements. We're heading to New York City for our profiles section.
Right, this source looks at the recent election victory of Zoran Mamdani in New York. He won campaigning on what the article calls an unabashed democratic socialism platform.
And this wasn't a minor race, was it? He defeated an established candidate.
Yes, reportedly a well-funded establishment opponent. This win is seen as significant because it suggests the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, are gaining real electoral traction beyond just activism.
You mentioned Bernie Sanders earlier in the context of normalizing the label.
Exactly. Sanders really brought the term democratic socialism into the mainstream conversation. And you can see the impact in DSA membership numbers, apparently up from around 6,500 in 2014 to over 85,000 now. That's quite a jump.
Mamdani's platform is described using the term decommodification. What does that mean in practice?
Decommodification, in this context, means taking essential human needs out of the free market system, treating things like housing, childcare, transportation, not as commodities to be bought and sold for profit, but as social rights.
So what were his specific promises?
Things like rent freezes, universal childcare, making buses fare-free, setting up municipally run grocery stores, and a big one, creating 200,000 units of permanently affordable housing.
How does this flavor of democratic socialism differ from, say, the Nordic model or European social democracy? People often confuse them.
That's a really important distinction the source makes. European social democracy, or the Nordic model, generally aims to reform capitalism. Strong welfare states, high taxes, strong unions. But they largely keep the market economy intact. They regulate it heavily.
And the DSA's goal?
The DSA, as represented here, has a more fundamental critique. They tend to view capitalism itself as the root cause of problems like deep inequality, systemic violence, and the climate crisis. Their long-term goal isn't just to regulate capitalism, but to gradually replace it with a socialist system.
But through democratic means, not revolution.
Correct. The emphasis is on achieving this transformation through democratic processes, like winning elections and passing legislation.
And winning in New York City, with its massive budget, over $100 billion, that's a significant validation, isn't it?
It really is. It shows this movement has moved beyond just, say, campus organizing or local activism into potentially shaping policy in one of the world's major cities. Whether they can actually implement that decommodification agenda at scale, well, that's the next big question.
All right, let's journey from city politics to the vastness of space for our science section. This is about citizen science making real astronomical discoveries.
Yeah, this is a fantastic story about a project called RAD at Home, run by Professor Ananda Hoda. It involves a Facebook group, believe it or not, with about 4,700 members.
Mostly amateurs.
Mostly non-professionals, yes. But they're contributing to genuine astronomical research. The latest news is they reported finding a really unusual object, an odd radio circle, or ORC.
Odd radio circle? Sounds intriguing. What are they?
Well, the odd part is key, because astronomers are still trying to figure them out. They're these huge, very faint circular structures visible only in radio wavelengths typically found surrounding distant galaxies. They're a relatively new cosmic mystery.
So how does a Facebook group find something like this? What's the process?
Professor Hoda and his team provide training through virtual lectures. They teach participants how to look at astronomical images across different wavelengths, UV, optical, radio, and recognize, the standard shapes and colors of galaxies, stars, nebulae. The goal is to train their eyes to spot things that don't fit the standard patterns, things that buck expectations, as the source puts it. They use data from telescopes like LOFAR, the low-frequency array.
And did they find something particularly special recently?
They did indeed. One of the participants, a student named Prison Machado, identified something incredibly rare, a double ORC.
Double, so two of these circles.
Exactly. Two vast circular radio structures, much, much larger than the galaxy they seem to flank. Apparently, this is only the second double ORC ever confirmed.
Wow. Do scientists have any working theories about what causes ORCs?
There are a few leading ideas being debated. One possibility is that they are gigantic spherical shock waves, expanding outwards from incredibly powerful events, maybe like the collision of two galaxies, propagating for maybe even 1 billion years.
But billion years, incredible scale. Any other theories?
Another idea is they could be the lingering remnants, the sort of afterglow from enormous outbursts from the central regions of galaxies, perhaps linked to the merger of supermassive black holes. We just don't know for sure yet.
It really highlights the power of citizen science, though.
Absolutely. Professor Hoda's philosophy is explicitly about challenging that old model where education and research are kept separate. He argues that combining learning with active discovery is crucial for accelerating astronomy, especially in India. It's quite inspiring.
Okay, from the wonders of the cosmos, we now turn to a very difficult and painful subject in our spotlight section, the recent gang rape case in Coimbatore.
Yes, this source reports on the crime itself and the subsequent investigation and response. The incident involved a 20-year-old student who was attacked by 3 men on the night of November 2nd. This happened near the boundary wall of the Government Polytechnic College after her friend was also assaulted, reportedly with a sickle and a stone.
The details of her escape are harrowing.
They are. According to the report, she was forced to climb a 7-foot wall to get away around 4 a.m. Then she desperately sought help in a nearby residential area, Brindhavan Nagar knocking on doors, even switching on someone's water pump to get attention, hopping fences until finally a resident helped her and called the police around 4:20 a.m.
The police response sounds like it was swift and substantial.
It does. The report mentions about 100 police personnel were immediately deployed, including a K-9 unit searching the area, including thick vegetation nearby.
How did they catch the perpetrators?
The breakthrough apparently came from analyzing CCTV footage. They examined visuals from almost 300 surveillance cameras in the vicinity. That, combined with finding an abandoned moped at the scene, which they linked to a previous theft case, led them to the suspects.
And the accused, did they have prior records?
Yes, the 3 individuals identified Krupasmi, Kaliswaran, and Guna were described as history sheeters. This means they had previous criminal records, including serious charges like murder for gain and robbery in past cases.
How were they apprehended?
They were located in a place called Eloquence. The report states that during the arrest attempt, they allegedly assaulted a head constable and tried to flee, at which point police shot them in the leg to apprehend them.
What about the legal and political aftermath?
Charges have been filed under the new Pratyanyaya Sanhita, specifically including Section 70, which deals with gang rape. There was a strong public reaction, and the chief minister condemned the crime. He instructed the police to file the final charge sheet within 1 month, pushing for the highest possible punishment. The police have also reportedly increased night patrols in the area as a response measure. It's a neutral reporting of the facts and the official actions taken.
Okay, let's move into our magazine section now. First up, we're looking at a trend gaining traction in India. FIRE, that's financial independence, retire early.
Right, the FIRE movement. It seems to be really catching on, especially among younger Indians. The source highlights a large online community, nearly 65,000 members on Reddit's FIRE India forum. And surveys suggest something like 43% of Indians under 25 actually hope to retire before they hit 55.
Is this just aspiration or are people actually doing it?
Well, there are definitely success stories. The article mentions Ravi and the Wahanda, a couple who managed to retire in their late 30s. They sold a startup, built a corpus of about 15 crore rupees, and now seem to enjoy a life of spontaneous, lavish travel. They're kind of the poster couple for the dream.
But there's a catch, isn't there? The math doesn't quite work the same way in India as it might in the West.
That's the critical reality check the source emphasizes. Those popular Western rules of thumb, like saving 25 times your annual expenses, or the 4% withdrawal rule, experts warn they are pretty unreliable for India.
Why is that?
Mainly because India typically has higher inflation rates and more volatile investment returns compared to, say, the U.S. market, where these rules originated. Saving the kind of aggressive amounts needed, like 50% to 75% of your income, is extremely difficult, if not impossible, for most middle-class Indians.
So what's a more realistic number for India?
One actuary quoted, Palak Chauhan, suggests a safer target for your corpus might be closer to 30 or even 33 times your annual expenses, not just 25. Another columnist, Vivek Kaul, is even more skeptical, viewing FIRE largely as a kind of story marketed by financial advisors, mostly achievable only by high-net-worth individuals who have significant capital to invest and can ride out market downturns.
It's not just about the money, though, is it? There's a psychological side to retiring super early.
Absolutely. The source brings up the paradox of leisure. Early retirement often means losing the daily structure, the intellectual stimulation, and importantly, the professional identity that comes with working.
Like the Hondas you mentioned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ravi Honda, despite achieving financial independence, apparently faced a bit of an identity crisis. So much so that he's now building an AI platform, kind of playfully called Honda Uncle, perhaps to find that sense of purpose again.
So maybe extreme FIRE isn't the only way.
Right. The article suggests looking at more humane or perhaps sustainable alternatives, things like coast FIRE, where you save aggressively early on to let compounding do the heavy lifting later, allowing you to downshift your career, or barista FIRE, where you save enough to cover basic needs but work part-time, maybe for benefits like health insurance. Less extreme, potentially more balanced.
Okay, staying in the creative and ambitious vein, let's look at Maya. This sounds like a massive world-building project.
It really does. It's the brainchild of Anand Gandhi and Zain Memon. They're creating what they call a narrative universe, Maya. And it's not just one thing. It spans films, board games, novels, even video games, a whole transmedia ecosystem.
What's the world itself like?
It's set on a fictional planet called Ne. This planet is ruled by a sort of divine class whose power comes from controlling a network of special trees. These trees can apparently simulate possible futures and even read minds.
Sounds like fertile ground for exploring big ideas.
That seems to be exactly the point. They describe Maya as an ideology sandbox. They want to use this fictional world, its stories, its fables and metaphors, to explore complex, heavy concepts that are very relevant to us here on Earth.
Such as?
Things like surveillance capitalism, the implications of AI, social structures like race and caste, issues of immigration. They want people to engage with these ideas through the different media formats.
And they spent a long time just on the foundations.
4 years just developing the lore, the background story, the rules of this universe. They even created a Sanskrit-inspired appendix for the first novel, Seed Takes Root. Their core belief seems to be that monoculture is dead.
Meaning you can't just rely on one blockbuster movie anymore.
Pretty much. You need multiple entry points to draw people into a complex world like this. So you might come in through the board game, Yutsu, or the novel, or eventually a film.
Has it gotten much traction yet?
It seems so. They had a very successful crowdfunding campaign, raising $400,000 against an initial target of just $10,000. That signals significant interest. And they seem to have global ambitions. They even got Hugo Weaving to narrate the audiobook for the novel.
What's next for Maya?
One really interesting plan they mention is opening up the world of Maya to other writers. They want to create an API, an application programming interface, that would allow external creators to build stories within their universe.
Wow, like an open source narrative world?
Sort of, yeah. It reflects their big ambition to build what they call a vast cultural monument, something homegrown that can stand alongside and maybe push back against the dominance of Western cultural franchises. It's a really fascinating, ambitious project.
And for our final piece today, we're looking at history through art and architecture with an exhibition on the Taj Mahal.
Yes, this is about an exhibition at the Dega Gallery titled The Mute Eloquence of the Taj Mahal. It's curated by Rana Savi and uses over 200 historical photographs and paintings dating from the 18th century up to the mid-20th century. The aim is to explore the monument's story and how its perception has evolved, but also how the building itself communicates.
And it highlights that the Taj we see today isn't exactly what was originally intended.
Correct. Specifically the grounds. The very English-style manicured lawns that dominate the view now were largely put in place by Lord Curzon during the British Raj. Shah Jahan's original vision, the Charabag Garden, was very different.
How so?
It was meant to be a much lusher, more vibrant garden, filled with fruit trees and flowers, explicitly designed to represent the Quranic vision of paradise, Jannat, a very different feel from the sort of stately, formal lawns we associate with it now.
The exhibition title mentions mute eloquence. How does the building speak?
Through its intricate details, according to the curator. The careful selection of Quranic verses inscribed on the walls dealing with themes of Judgment Day and resurrection. And also the Pietra Dura inlay works, the decorative floral patterns. For example, the use of a reverse tulip motif is interpreted as symbolizing gloom or sorrow, alongside other flowers representing divine beauty and harmony. It's about reading the symbolism embedded in the design.
Now, this exhibition is happening at a time when there's renewed public debate about the Taj's origins, right? With claims it was originally a Hindu temple.
Yes, the source notes that the exhibition coincides with the release of a film promoting the theory that the monument was originally a Shiva temple, called Teo Mahalaya. Proponents often cite things like the Kailash finial on the dome or the sealed basement rooms as evidence.
How does the exhibition curator Rana Savi address this controversy?
Her approach, as described, is focused on public scholarship, meaning presenting the documented historical facts based on available evidence rather than directly engaging in point-by-point refutation of alternative theories. She emphasizes that Mughal court records, including chronicles and poetry from the time, meticulously document the Taj's commissioning and construction by Shah Jahan for Mumtaz Mahal.
And features like the Kailash.
She presents them as part of the evolution and culmination of Indo-Islamic architecture, a style that blended elements from both traditions over centuries. The exhibition essentially lays out the historical and architectural evidence and, as the source says, invites visitors to make up our own minds. It aims to inform the debate with documented history.
It really makes you think about how narratives are constructed, whether it's about a monument, a political movement, or even our own financial futures, like with fire. How much is design? How much is interpretation? How much is historical fact?
That's a really great point to end on. How we choose to read the evidence or the mute eloquence around us definitely shapes our understanding.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.